at the lower level is a Persian synagogue. So Bibi Netanyahu came there, and I called him crazy.
To his face?
Nobody put, yeah, he never put me in jail.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Yasmine Mohammed podcast. Today, we have a very special guest. I've never before had a Jewish man who was born and raised in Iran on my podcast. So I'm very excited today to speak with Isaac Yomtovian. Isaac Yomtovian was born into a Jewish family in a Muslim neighborhood across from the Shah's place in Tehran, Iran. Growing up in pre-revolution Iran, he has a unique perspective into the relationship amongst Jews and Muslims. Living in Israel as a Sephardi, Isaac shares how his values translate in the Western world. Welcome, Isaac. Thank you so much for joining me.
It's a privilege to be on your program, and thank you for having me. Special thanks also to Sarah, who keeps emailing me, making sure that I'm in line.
Yes, special thanks to Sarah every day, millions of times a day, always. So Sarah actually helped me a lot with your book because she's Iranian and she could understand a lot of the terms. The first term is Pesare. So you introduce yourself as Isaac Pesare Abram Juhud, son of Ibrahim the Jew, in almost any platform and also in your book. So what is the significance of this name to you, and why is it important for people to know and to understand the meaning of this moniker? So tell us about your experience as a young Jewish boy growing up and working in Muslim neighborhoods in Iran.
Well, the word juhud in Arabic means effort, work. And in the past, probably the word juhud was given to the communities that were hardworking people, and it was not a derogatory word. But in Iran, especially during the period when I lived in Iran, the word juhud was very degrading and derogatory and disrespectful. And usually they used the word juhud, it came with other adjectives like dirty Jew. So it was very hurtful as a child to be known as Juhud. Although we were Jewish, it's okay to call us Yahudi or to call us Kalimi, but Juhud was a derogatory word. Later on, when I grew up and was working for my father in the southern part of Tehran, my father's name is Abraham. So to call me son of the Abraham the Juhud was double disrespect. Once was for my father and once for me. So it was very hurtful to be called Pesare, which means the son of Abraham the Juhud. And constantly they would call me that. And of course, this later on became worse when I attended university and so on. And when I came to United States, it totally changed. In United States, it became like a badge of honor for me. And here I am, the son of Abraham the Juhud, from this poor neighborhood that working so hard, being called, second-class citizen and so on. And here I am, successful, God, thank God, have a few degrees, businesses, and so on and so forth. And it's very interesting that now I remind everybody, well, yeah, I'm Jewish, but I was son of the Abraham Juhud that I'm here now. So it's a badge of honor today.
Yeah,
and that's
absolutely.
why I use it in my book constantly.
Yes. So. Mazel tov. That's beautiful. I love that. I love that you're taking this terminology that was meant to hurt you or degrade you, and that you have turned it around and made it empowering. You have everything to be proud of, to be everything that you've succeeded in your life, everything that your father has given to you, and everything that you've become Yeah, absolutely. I think that's fantastic. Good for you. Don't let them bring you down.
Thank you.
So you mentioned that your ancestors were 2,500 years ago in Iran, and you grew up and lived and worked in Iran. You were even accepted into a number of universities in Tehran, but you decided to move to Israel and you decided to make a living there for yourself. So, what is it that prompted you to make that decision? Tell us about the Zionist movement in Iran and how it impacted the Jewish youth in Iran.
Well, this is a number of questions, but I will try to answer one at a
Yeah.
time. The Jews of Iran are, they call them Eidot HaMizrach, the Jews of the East. Our traditions and our prayers and so on are Sephardic traditions, which are the Sepharad means Spain. So
Yeah.
we are called Sephardic Jews, but it's not accurate. We are Eidot HaMizrach. We are the Jews of the East. That's number one. Number two, Jews went to Iran after the destruction of the first temple. Cyrus the Great was great king of Iran that helped the Jews, and that's our source. That's our roots. That over 2,500 years. As a matter of fact, in my book, I refer to a tombstone of a Jewish person in Isfahan. That's where my family is from. In the cemetery, a tombstone that written the name of a person who is dead in Hebrew and the year that he died. And that is going back 2,500 years. That means there is a proof, undeniable proof, that Jews of Iran have roots that goes back 2,500 years. For people that lived in that country for so many years as dedicated citizens of Iran, we were never accepted as full citizens of Iran. We were always identified as minority, as Jews. They separated us. Now, I happen to love Iran. I love its culture, music, poetry, civilization, hospitality. So I never had an idea about leaving Iran. My father in 1956 visited Israel. The reason he went into Israel was because all Jews, no matter where you are, you pray towards Jerusalem. All Jews have the dream of seeing this country, the land of the ancestors. So my father went there and fell in love with life in Israel. He felt a very proud Jewish person there and no longer being called Jehud and be discriminated. So he came back with the love of going back to Israel and decided to take the family to Israel, immigrate. But it took him about 10 years from 1956 to 1966. When it came to me, I refused to go to Israel. I said, no, I'm Iranian. I'm going to stay in Iran. You want to go? Go. So my parents and siblings immigrated to Israel. I stayed back. I was very proud Iranian, now young man of 17 years old, 18 years old. In those days, I had a motorcycle, which was like having a car. That was something really nice to have. My father couldn't sell his last home, so I had a home, I had furniture, I had it all. And money-wise, I was doing really well because hundreds and hundreds of customers of my father who purchased their fabric on credit, they owed money to my father, and I was a collector. So with the motorcycle every week, I would go. So I had money, I had a house, I had accepted to 3 universities, Tehran University, Aryamer University, Shiraz University, the Pahlavi University. So I had it. The first days of my attending school, the university, the educated, the academic, the young Muslim friends sitting in the class with me when they called me Juhud, and when they told me that we are going to finish what Hitler didn't finish.
Oh.
When they coded the profile of the elders of Zion, there are so many derogatory things about Jews. That really hurt me for the first time, far more than being called Juhud, Pesar Abraham Juhud. And so I had many, many Muslim friends that we grew up together. But this was the straw that broke the camel's back. And that was it. I left and I went to Israel.
So you talk in your book about this word najasa, which in Islam,
Yes.
it's something that is very dirty, like a dog or a pig, and they use this word to describe Jewish people. If you touch food, they won't eat it. If you sit in a chair, they won't sit in it, like that. Had you experienced all of these vicious anti-Semitic things before university? Had you lived all the way to 17 without seeing any of this?
No, throughout my life. As a matter of fact, when you are a child, it's far worse impact on you. Najas means impure, as you know, impure, and it is contagious. When you go to school and the teacher wants to punish you, he had to take a napkin and get your ear with a napkin and punish you so that, God forbid, they will be touching you. Or when you go to buy milk or cheese or anything you want to buy, the money that goes from your hand had to be put on a piece of paper to be given to. It's very hurtful. But I can tell you stories in the book. You will see some of it is absolutely funny. We had people Muslim people, Ali and his wife, Hajar. I tell the story that we would take them to the, vacations and so on with us. They were our best friends. But when we would cut the watermelon, pieces of watermelon, and give it to them, they had to wash it in the running water that was so contaminated and dirty. Because we touched it, it was called najas. They would eat it that way. There are many other cases, and I have a story that is kind of not really nice story. It's kind of like childish story. When we went to a local grocery store that was selling yogurt, and I touched that yogurt with my finger. The guy, the shop owner, drained the entire yogurt in the street because I touched. There is 13 laws against minorities that is well known in Iran. It's called Jam Abbasi, that is written 13 laws, and those are in my book. Constitutionally, during Safaviya period, about 1500, the year 1500 or so on, it was written against minorities, but especially against Jews. And one of them is this concept of najas and jaziyah and so on and so forth. You probably know all about it.
Yes, but I'd like you to tell us a little bit about jizya, because I don't know if everybody listening is familiar with what that means.
Well, I talk about jizya, which is a tax or a payment that a minority, especially Jewish person, needs to pay the government for the right to exist in that country. I argue with my Muslim friends that, hey, I'm more Iranian than you are. I have a documented history that I have lived in this country 2,500 years, my ancestors and so on. So I'm a real Iranian. And you are telling me that I have to pay you a tax or especially money so that I live where it is my home. And I compare it to a person that owns the house versus a tenant. I own the house. You are a tenant that you came from Afghanistan and God knows what other country without a documentation that you have been here 2,500 years. I am the one that Iranian. So jizya is a very hurtful payment. During the Shah's period, however, they never implemented that law, but some of the mullahs, some of the religious leaders demanded that this must be the case. And in the very first part of my book, I tell you about this mullah that was our neighbor, and he, with his family, would come to our store and purchase as many fabric as he wanted on credit, because my father was selling on credit. So then when we would go to collect the monthly payment, he would refuse to pay. So many times repeated. So finally, my father goes and demands to be paid for what he purchased. And he started beating him up. And this is in my book. And this is a story that all of our neighbors and friends, they know about it. Because he felt that what he purchased from my father should be considered as jizya. And the story is much longer than that. And I just wanted to let you know that when people came and separated them, he said, send the salawat and forget. And we say, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. That's the salawat. And that's it. They forgot. My father forgot. And that's it. This is the story of jizya.
It's to always remind you that you are not a citizen like everybody else. You are a second-class citizen, that you are subordinate. There's a second tier for you. That's one of the many reasons. But of course, every time you have to pay it, you have to, it's so you know you're different, you know.
Right.
So with knowing about jizya, knowing about najasa, telling us these stories of them, you know, throwing out their own yogurt and washing their watermelon in dirty water and all of these, you know, stupid things that they're doing because they don't want to touch a dirty Jewish person. How is it that you had such a love for Iran that you didn't want to run to Israel just like your father, and that you said, no, I want to stay living here?
I loved Iran, still do, and I miss it. The music, the poetry, the history, the hospitality, the food, the aroma of the food. Yeah. And I tell you, in Los Angeles, that keeps us together. The Muslim Iranians, the Armenian Iranians, the Zoroastrian Iranians, the Jewish Iranian. I have endless number of Muslim friends. I have Muslim friends, I call them my sisters, and they call me my brothers. And I have awful lot of friends that there is no even glass separation. So loving Iran has nothing to do with Islamic Republic of Iran. That I call satanic regime. Loving Iran has nothing to do with those ones that I grew up among them that hated to have someone more successful than they are. They hated the fact that we were having a fun and love of Iran. They just couldn't see it. So as far as still loving Iran, the fact of the matter is that I consider my roots 2,500 years and more in Iran, and I am praying. I dream of the day that this satanic regime will be changed. Mm-hmm. And I will take my children, my grandchildren, to Iran and show them how proud I am of Cyrus the Great, how proud I am of all of the poets and so many beautiful things about Iran. So that's why I love Iran. And my book, the title is My Iran.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's very clear that you love Iran. Like I mentioned, the food, you have so many pictures of the food on Instagram. There's even recipes in your book. It's
I have to
definitely,
tell you a story about my
yeah,
book, my
tell me.
recipes. I was invited to Washington D.C., Virginia area to give a talk about my book, a book presentation. So the lady in charge from Hadassah, she says, Isaac, we want a cooking class, a Persian cooking class. So I said, okay, I gave them all of the ingredients that I needed, supplies, and so on. So I go them. This is a gymnasium in JCC, Jewish Community Center. Huge gymnasium. And they set up all of the food. They charge everybody $150 to attend that cooking class. So anyway, we we had the cooking, the aroma of the food was covering the entire building. People would come from all over to get some of the sample of the food. So the class is over. Now starts my book presentation. In the cooking class, over 150 people attended. When I went to the book presentation, there were like 25 people. And the book presentation was free. The cooking class, they were charged $150. So thank God I have that section in my book.
You should write a cookbook next. So I want to ask you about this connection that you have to Iran that's so strong. And let's go back to 17-year-old Isaac now in university, when the students were, they had crossed a line for you. Like you said, it was the straw that broke the camel's back, and you started to feel like this is too much. So is it because those students were more Islamic, or was it because they were leftists, or what was it about those students that made them so different from all the people that you had known your whole life in Iran?
Yeah, it's very interesting anti-Semitism, how it translates itself. Well, in the beginning, when Moses gave the Ten Commandments, of course, there were differences between different Jews, but it was not anti-Semitism. It was conflict between families. This part believed this. So, okay, I can get that. Later on, it became a religious thing. Christianity, Islam comes, and Jews, they have their own religion. So now you have a difference between religions. Okay, when you have difference between religion, you can convert and escape the discrimination, or you can walk away like they did in Spain, in England, elsewhere, when they were discriminated against. They walked away and they remained Jews. That's okay. Religion. Then it comes social economic reason that, oh, Jews are too wealthy, or Jews, they have too much control, or Jews are this way or that way. That's kind of anti-Semitism, but it's tolerable because you can move from one place to another or convert. But when it comes to race, it's undeniably, you can't get rid of your race. During Hitler time, they used race as anti-Semitism. And you can't convert, you can't change. The only thing is just run to a land called Israel. Okay, I got that. Now comes Iran. In Iran, as long as they were a bunch of kids, bunch of hoodlums, bunch of guys that they didn't have education and so on and so forth, they would call me Juhud, Besar Abraham Juhud, and so on. All right, I can tolerate that. But when you are in university, and these are learned academics that read a lot of books, they really know their way, and the professors too, that they are very well known, very well educated people. They go and they take these other books that against Jews and total anti-Semitism, the portfolio of the elders of Zion, that they say Jews, they take the blood of a child and put it in the matzah or bread fatir, Pesach bread. What is this? Where did it come? Indeed, Jews, they get rid of blood. If there is a piece of the drop of blood in the meat that you are eating, that's not kosher. What is it? And then there are many, many other derogatory and terribly hurtful. If it comes from them, that hurts. And that's, to me, it has nothing to do with Islam. I really, truly have nothing to do with hatred of Islam. It's the interpretation of what's in Quran, interpretation of what they do against minorities, especially against Jews. That hurtful. And today,
if I can just interrupt you for one moment, Isaac, and tell you that things like jizya are not an interpretation. That's Islam.
That's right. You are correct. And I have a Quran that I quote from Quran. And in my book, I give you the surah, I give you the verse, where it came from, especially Surah Tu'bah. It's incredibly hurtful to read those. I know about Jaziyah, there are so many other things, but you are correct. This is not interpretation. But when they take that and combining it with ridiculous interpretation, that really hurts.
Yes, for sure. I can understand that. So when I was in Jerusalem, I was in it was like a kind of a museum of the Jewish people. It talks about them, from Morocco, Iran, Poland, where all of the diaspora Jews and coming home to Israel.
Museum of Diaspora.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm going to read you a little bit of a picture that I took here about Iranian Jews because I want to ask you about it. It says, Jews in Mashhad, Iran, were forced to convert to Islam. They chose life. So outwardly, they converted to Islam, but secretly, they continued to practice their Judaism. This situation lasted for 120 years. 120 years. Blows my mind. Every Friday, the converts would go to the mosque, but in the evening, they would welcome the Shabbat. The women, who as Muslims were required to fully cover their bodies, would carry the Torah scrolls and prayer shawls beneath their hijab, basically beneath their clothes, and bring them to secret synagogues set up in private homes. The members of this community lived in a ghetto called Jadid al-Islam, which means new Muslims, and they married only within their community, and they betrothed their children to one another as soon as they were born. The Jews of Mashhad were allowed to revert to Judaism only in the 20th century. So if your family has been there for 2,500 years, your family was amongst these miraculous people that somehow for 120 years managed to keep their Judaism secret because it meant their life. They had to do that for their survival.
Yes. Mashhad is name of a city northeast in Khorasan area. It's where Imam Reza is buried. It's very, very religious city. Many ayatollahs are from Mashhad. The Mashhadi Jews, it's true, they chose to convert theoretically and build synagogues in their basements and also mikveh. Mikveh is a pool of water that you purify yourself in their basements. Interesting enough, because of that terrible, terrible situation, they studied Torah, they studied Judaism far more than Jews from other cities. They became the scholars. They became the teachers. As a matter of fact, my teacher, Dilmanian, was Mashhadi. Many of the synagogues, their leader of the prayers became Mashhadis because they really studied Judaism and Torah and all type of books. And then the other one is they never married non-Jews because as soon as a child would be born, that's true. They would give it to the cousin, and then when a Muslim would come for the hand of their daughter, for example, say, "Oh, we are sorry, she is already promised to so and so." The names became Muslim names, Abdullah, and so on and so forth. Many of them, however, nowadays in Long Island, New York, they have tremendous synagogues. They are very successful. Many of them all over the world where they live, Mashhadis, they have that concept of Judaism far more than the others. But it is true that 100 and some years they were not practicing their Jew in public. And thank God, they are the one that saved many of us from the path of Judaism. I mean, away from conversion and staying in the path of Judaism.
Yeah. So now I want to ask you about the fact that most of the chapters in your book start with a quote from Muhammad. So I'm just wondering, I mean, you have words of wisdom. No, I won't be saying that. You have words of wisdom from your own faith. So what is it that made you choose words of Muhammad?
Yeah. I just didn't want my book to be a book that some people think it is a hatred. I didn't want it to be a book that people would think, wow, that's all against Muslims. I didn't want it to be a book that the first page they read and they throw it in the garbage. No. I wanted to be truth, and I wanted to be balanced. The truth of the matter is Prophet Muhammad had a lot of good things to say also. And I believe in it. I studied in the Islamic school. So when Muhammad says, respect your mother and father so you will have a place in the heavens. Fine, I understand that, because we have the fifth commandment in the Torah. The fifth commandment says, Kabet et avicha ve'imecha. Now, so the Jews far before Prophet Muhammad said that respect your mother. It's in our commandment. But the difference is, Prophet Muhammad says, if you respect your mother and father, in the next world you will be in heavens. In Judaism says, no, if you respect your mother and father, in this world you will have longer, better life. And then there are other ones that kosoki soke aso, when you are angry, you are, and it's in my book, and it's taken, I have parallel to that in Judaism. But I wanted to use
because it was
Prophet Muhammad so that whoever reads this book says that it's not a hatred. I also have Rumi, Sa'di, Hafiz, Khayyam. I have many rabbis and so on, but also Muhammad as well.
Okay. I see what you're saying, and I appreciate that, and I understand it. But I do want to say, too, that it would be perfectly fair for a man who was raised the way you were in such an anti-Semitic country, having to withstand daily hate, that it would be perfectly acceptable for you to have anger, that it's inhumane for someone to expect that you would not have anger. You're a human being. And if the tables were turned, and if there were Jewish people treating Muslims like this, and if there were Jewish people throwing away any yogurt that a Muslim had touched, or that were forcing the Muslims to pay a special kind of tax to live in Israel, because we know like 20% of Israelis are Arabs, any of those things were happening, everybody would say it's acceptable for the Muslims to be angry, but somehow you are always forced to be, the bigger man, and to have, an excess of humanity, which, you know, you normally do. It's true, but it's also unfair to constantly be carrying this concern that you have to be fair with the people who have treated you so badly. You know, you're allowed to be angry and you're allowed to express that anger, and nobody would fault you for it. No decent person would fault you for it.
I hear you.
So let's talk about your life now. So you left, did you leave Iran now soon after? So you were still a teenager, maybe 18, 19 when you went to
within
Israel?
Within a week after.
Wow.
I tell you, I was just beside myself. After that event. I left the university. I went to Israeli Sukhnut, it's called. It's a kind of representative office. And I said, I want to go. They managed all of my processes and so on. And where did I go? I went to a kibbutz. Kibbutz Shomer HaTzair, kibbutz in Hedera, called Gan Shmuel. Boy, oh boy, what's that? Eye-opening for me. I couldn't believe it. The life in kibbutz with equalities, with all types of privileges, it's incredible. I write about it, that how shocked I was. And I made progress there. I became Sadran Avoda. I became like a big cheese there because I would assign people to different work daily. I learned Hebrew and it was incredible. And I wanted to stay there. But then all of a sudden I get a letter that, boy, you have to come to Technion, that university in Haifa, technical university, that you have to have an entrance examination. Come on for the entrance examination, which I did, and I passed, and I got into the civil engineering. And the rest of the story, it's very interesting. When 67 war started and so on, but that was it. I could have stayed in Iran. I could have become engineer or whatever, and I would have stayed and contributed and served. But no, under the regime of Islam, satanic regime of Islamic Republic, it's better to be anywhere, not in Iran.
Yeah. I mean, Israel has been a safe haven for so many Jewish people from all around the world, obviously from Iraq and Egypt and Yemen and all over the Middle East, but also, of course, throughout Europe and Russia, you know, everywhere. So it is a similar story where people were living in difficult circumstances and they were basically refugees to Israel. So it's
Right.
That's the blessing, that there was a place for you all to go where you could feel safe and not persecuted and mistreated just because of who you are.
Right.
So tell us about how your life changed. Like, did you start to see yourself differently? Did you what were some significant impacts in your life from living in Iran to living in Israel?
I tell you also the good stuff and the bad stuff, because I want to give the balance. From the standpoint of being proud Jewish and then having, this is called democracy, freedom, and so on, it was great. It was wonderful. There were also some negativity. And I tell you, the first immigrants, or chalutzim, pioneers, that they went to Israel, they were Europeans. And they were learned, educated, professionals, Europeans that went to Israel. So when they went there, these pioneers, they also assumed responsibilities within different levels of Israeli society. So they had good positions and a much higher position. The Iranian Jews, as well as Yemenites, other Eastern countries, they went to Israel because they were very poor. They were not educated. They didn't have high professions. So the waves, I call it the first wave that from Iran went to Israel, they were the type of people that were not equal to the Europeans. The Europeans were well educated and so on. So when they were there, we were Parsi. Pars is the word for Persia or Iran, which is also in the Torah. So they called them Parsis. My father, myself, and my family, and so on. That was kind of disrespectful. When you say Parsi, that means some guy that is not the level of Europeans. We got that. So this is the negative. But the positive of it is the next generation, the generations that were born and raised in Israel, the Persian, the Iranian, such a proud people. They are in military, high ranking. They are in business, very successful. They are in universities. They have high graduation, high tech, you name it. That's it. So there is no connotation that Parsi, now they are proud Persians. So there is good. So if there is discrimination in Israel, you can overcome it.
Yeah.
Which we couldn't do that in Iran after 2,500 years. And that's why I said that it felt good when my roommate was an Israeli Arab from Haifa in Technion. We shared room. And he was arguing with me. I was arguing with him. We have family differences. Okay. But we respected each other. I don't know where he is right now, but I know he graduated with me, civil engineer. So being in a country where you can demand your rights and the court will give you your right is different than living in Iran, where for no reason, a prayer shawl, we used to have a prayer shawl in blue and white, and it had Magen David, they had the Star of David. Now it's a sign of being Zionist. You cannot have that. They put flag of Israel by the doors of high schools and elementary schools. The kids, they have to walk on the flag of Israel. So it's different.
Yes, it's very different. That's a really good point, because I did hear from Jewish people whose family had come from Iraq and other countries around the Middle East where they had similar experiences, where there was that kind of disparity between the European Jews and the Arab, well, they're not Arab Jews. I said that by accident once. I'll never do it again. Sephardic and Mizrahi Jews. But that's human. You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, we're all human beings, and we are tribal, and we grew up in certain areas. We speak our same language. We have the same food. We have the same culture. Of course, we're gonna, connect more with the people that we relate to. And it's growing pains. It's going to take a while. I'm impressed to hear that it has only taken one generation. I know that there's still some growing pains going on, but obviously things have improved year after year. And it's exactly because of that, because there is no law saying that if you are a Mizrahi Jew, then you are going to pay jizya, you are going to be second-class citizen, you are going to be treated differently. So as when you're living in a democratic nation, you can get past any kind of bigotry or racism or things like that. I will say, though, that I think that what would really, not that I know so much about Israel, but I will say that the separation of the schools, the way that there are like schools for Arabs and schools for the Hasidic and schools for the this and schools for the that, I feel like that continues this, siloing. And if all the kids were going together in secular public schools, then you would see more of mixing, because then it would take less time for people to see each other as brothers and sisters and to not pay attention to what are our differences, but instead they're thinking of who are you as an individual human being, right? We are all united. We're all Israeli, but when you're separated like that, you're kind of always thinking of your fellow Israelis as an other of some sort.
Right. I agree with you on many cases. I never said Israel is perfect. As a
No,
matter
of
of
course,
fact, in
no
my
country,
book,
there's no
in
perfect
my
country yet.
in my book, I criticize
Yes.
a lot of behaviors. And the good things about it, nobody puts me in jail by
Yeah.
saying to Bibi Netanyahu, I met him in Manhattan in the synagogue, the Persian synagogue, Park East synagogue on Lexington and 68. At the lower level is a Persian synagogue. So Bibi Netanyahu came there, and I called him crazy. There is nothing.
To his face?
Nobody put. Yeah, he never put me in jail.
Yeah.
And in Israel, I can say things like, it's a terrible system of government. You have so many parties. You have so many
Too many.
differences. I can say whatever I feel against the government, and it's
Yeah.
okay. I argue with my cousins, with my brothers, sisters about systems in Israel. So, having said that, I can also say that there is a lot to improve in Israel. My daughter lives in Jerusalem with 3 kids, and I just visited her. She is terrified with 3 little kids when he hears the sirens.
Yeah.
And when she came to United States for a month or two after October 7th, and when the microwave would buzz, the kids would run to her. They thought this is a siren. So there is a lot to be done. I know it. But thank God there is Israel. Thank God that there is a homeland for the Jews. And I hope someday this anti Semitism that is empowered and fueled by the satanic regime of Iran somehow will be resolved. And I pray for it.
Yeah. I completely agree with you. I think it must feel especially difficult for Iranian Jewish people, what's happening right now, what happened on October 7th, because Iran was behind it.
Right.
I can't imagine how you must be feeling, how Jewish people in Israel who have Iranian roots, how they must be feeling with what's going on today. You're living in LA where there's a huge Israeli Jewish community. Tell me how you're feeling. How are Jewish Iranians feeling right now?
It's a tough situation. From one hand, we have tremendous affection and love for Iran as a country and this satanic regime of Islamic Republic. We just cannot believe that a country with such a great history should be run by a bunch of guys that they have hatred. Now, Iran has no boundaries with Israel. Iran has nothing that reason to hate Israel. As a matter of fact, Shah, during the Shah's period, there was a great relationship between Israel and Iran. All of the Chavrei kibbutzim, the members of the kibbutzim, they were working in Iran, helping. There could be, if there was a better relationship, there could be so much that Israel could help. Not only Iran, all of the Arab countries and Muslim. Agriculture, medicine, education, you name it. It can become such a power if they work together in peace. So, unfortunately, I believe And some of my friends believe, not all, that the empowerment, the financing, the whole rhetoric of Iranian leaders, Islamic leaders, causing Hezbollah, Hamas, Houthis,
Houthis.
Houthis in Iraq, in Yemen, everywhere, Syria. What the heck do you have against Israel? No, you pour your money and all of your politics and so on behind these groups and deny your own citizens in Iran so much that you can do for them. Israel can help you if you behave like a civilized human being and you become a country that used to be during the Shah and Shah's father and so on. There is so much that can be done together rather than just empowering hatred. In my opinion, these university kids, these academics and so on in the universities in the United States, elsewhere, I was just in Europe, and when I was visiting Israel with my wife, we were in Europe. The people that they are or homosexuals or liberals or whatever, they have these flags against Israel. I say, well, do you know what happens to you if you go to Gaza, if you go to Saudi Arabia, if you go any Islamic republic? You just go there and have a flag of this the flags that you have. They put you right away they kill you. And here you are supporting them. So the main, I believe, the main power, the main roots of so-called anti-Semitism today comes from Islamic Republic. And they are the one that empowering others, financing others, and for what? For what reason? Israel is there to stay. Israel is there to be a Jewish homeland for other Jews. So live with it. Make peace with it. Hezbollah can have much better life in Lebanon if they make a peace with Israel, and Israel will help them. The same thing with Hamas. Just stay there in a peace and get help. Others, the same thing. And especially Iran. I tell you, once this regime, satanic regime, is changed and social democratic regime takes over, the Persians, the Iranians, professionals, there are more professors in universities they have roots of Iranian roots. Professors, high tech, doctors all over. You know what they will do? They help Iran. Iran can benefit from all of the brain that has left. And it is unfortunate that this satanic group is helping terrorists instead of his own people.
Yeah, I completely agree. And most Iranian people agree with you too. This is the tragedy, is most Iranian people agree with you. And they have been fighting, obviously, for so long. We've been seeing them in the streets, risking their lives, losing their lives in this revolution against the Islamic regime. But they seem to be made of Teflon. 80% of your country hates you. Nobody wants them in power. But still, they are like a cockroach, unwilling to die, So I don't know what it's going to take, but I do know that all of this, Islamist garbage that we have seen, like dominoes all across the Middle East, it started with Iran. That was the first domino that was put down, right? And then the rest of them, right? And it traveled throughout the Middle East, Libya, Tunisia, Iraq, Syria, Egypt, you name it, right? Saudi Arabia, they all had to deal with this Islamist scourge. And when Iran falls, the others will fall as well. I have no doubt. I mean, the Arabs aren't even They are not the ones that are funding all of these terrorist groups the way that Iran is. Iran is the one. It is the source. It is the root. It is the bank. Obviously, Qatar shares some blame here as well.
Right.
But it really is, I feel that Iran is the key. Once that regime falls, we will see a renaissance in the Middle East and North Africa. What you're saying about the Iranian people is very, very true, very, very heartening, very, very good. I'm glad to see the Iranian people not just being brave in America and in, countries where it's safe, but they're being brave in Iran as well. I mean, they've set the bar for humanity somewhere in a stratosphere most humans don't enter,
Right.
But I have faith that good will overcome evil, and eventually this regime will fall, and then all of these terrorist groups that they have been funding, of course, will dry out without their bank
I
supporting
must
them.
I must tell you that I have awful lot of Muslim friends, and I'm very proud of them. And they are not all Iranians, but I can tell you that when we get together, we share a lot of these ideas, and we are proud of the fact that we have the roots that comes from a country with scholars like Abu Ali Sina and so many other ones. I mean, the great culture, the great civilization. And I'm proud of a lot of my Muslim friends that they tell me that they hate these anti-Semitism activities. They are the ones that they say, Isaac, I know that this is wrong, but they don't know any better. And we cannot fight them just by sitting silent. I don't believe in that. I believe that we have to be vigilant. We have to respond. We have to be active, but not fear, not to be frightened. In my book, I always say, fear is brother to death. In Iran, Islamic Republic is running the country based on fear.
Yeah.
They kill, they hang, they do whatever they can to create that significant fear among the citizens. And we cannot accept that here in the United States or anywhere where we live. We are not going to be frightened. We are not going to be afraid of speaking up and telling what is the truth. And hopefully that causes them to understand that what it means river to, what is it? They were calling from river to the sea and all type of other things that they don't even get it. And hopefully this regime in Iran will change social, secular democracy. That religion, it's okay, stay whatever you want, but separate from the government.
Inshallah. that is my dream for every country. Separation of mosque and state, separation of church and state, just separate your religion.
Right.
Let people practice their faith however they want to practice it. Do not force it upon them and shove it down their throats. And that's what's going to make people hate you and your religion anyway. So it's counterproductive.
Yes.
All right. So now I'm going to open it up to the audience who's here to ask you questions or share with you some experiences that they've had, because I can see that we've got some Iranians with us here today. We'll start with you, Tochi.
Hey, Yasmine, what's up? And Isaac, sir, good to see you.
Thank you.
I'm curious. I would love to know just a little bit more about pre-revolution Iran in terms of just how, and obviously I know you're going to cover this in your book, and I think it's an interesting thing that I would say a lot of people would love to know. Because I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, was it when the Islamic regime took over, was it such a massive warp in society where it, like, changed overnight, the values, or do you think that sort of that that there was a fertile sort of ground in terms of maybe perhaps the anti-Semitism and some of the values of the system at the time were kind of there. It's just that it required the Islamic regime to then come in and then, really take it to the next level and execute. I guess that's what I'm trying to figure out is just how secular and friendly, so quote unquote, was Iran pre-revolution Iran really?
Great question. Should have asked it.
Pre-revolution during the Shah's period, the government, as a government, had nothing to do with discrimination or any type of hatred among minorities. When I say minorities, I mean Christians, Zoroastrians, Sunni Muslims, as well as Jews. So during the Shah, the fire was covered. The concept of the 13 laws against minorities that I was mentioning, that is old, it existed, but it was not practiced by the government. So if you lived in communities that were educated, communities that were not tremendously religious and were not taught these laws against minorities, you were okay. Now, all of a sudden, the Islamic Republic comes, and now they open up the fire. Now it's obvious. Now the concept of jaziyah, najas, juhud, against against Jews, but also against Baha'is, for example. Baha'is were slaughtered one after the other. They are a group of minorities. So, yes, the Islamic Republic brought this hidden fire, opened it up, and burned. And it is true that it's far worse now than previous regime.
Great question, Tochi. Sarah, you're next.
Hi, Yasmin. Hi, Ashab. It's really nice to talk to you. Finally.
Is this the Sarah that sends emails?
Yes, that's me. It's very nice to meet you.
Thank you.
So I have an excerpt from your book. It's just one paragraph, very short, because I love literature. I grew up with Persian literature. And when I was reading this part, I know there are a lot of biases, discriminations, anti-Semitism, anti-everything in the whole literature. But this part got to me. And if it's okay, I'm just going to read it. It's very, very short. You say the words Juhud, Kalimi, and Yahudi refer to a Jewish person. Of those three words, Juhud has the most derogatory connotation. The greatest poets and scholars of Persian literature wrote disparagingly of Jews. Rumi uses the metaphor Juhudanna in his poetry and describes someone as being like a Juhud, that is, being like a dog. Ferdowsi refers to Juhud as enemies, Satan worshippers, dishonest, and liars. Nizami describes Juhuds as snakes and dogs, cowards, and deceitful. The poet Sadi wrote to the three, I can go on and on and on, and these are all great poets.
That's correct.
And I'm sitting there thinking, I know this is so in your face. Right. I read all these people and I never paid attention. I've not read them in maybe 20 years. Right. And then you love them. You still use pieces of their poetry in your book. And I'm sitting there thinking, how can you not be angry? How can you not hate these people? It doesn't connect, because if they talk about me and they talk about women like this, and that's why I don't like a lot of them. Right. I don't like them. But you have this reverence, this respect, and I don't understand it.
Okay. If you look at the cover of my book, you see a faded section of the poetry by Rumi.
Yes.
And this I also have within the book, that I love it. Rumi has a lot of good things to say. But also, he didn't like Jews. Sa'di, I have it here. Bani Adam a'zai yek
Yes, exactly.
I quoted
But that
him.
doesn't include the Jews.
That's right. In this part, doesn't. So uh, it's incredible that the poetry that we have that has so many good things, but at the same time, for some reason that is beyond my belief, Ferdowsi, I quote him all the time. I
Yes.
recite the story of Rostam and Sohrab to my grandkids. I bought them the book in English so they can understand. All of that is true. But at the same time, we have to admit the truth. The truth of the fact is that these people did so many hurtful writing against Jews. I have some of the Rumi's. As I said, I love Rumi, and I quote him constantly. But at the same time, when I read the part about the Juhud and this and that, it really hurtful. It hurts. Yeah. But that's it. What can I say? I have to be balanced. I have to say the good stuff, the bad stuff, and the ugly stuff. And I hope the reader of this book understands that I am just opening a window and you looking through the window and use your own judgment. You are right, Sarah. You are correct. And thank you for being so accurate.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I love that last sentence in your book. You say, I'm still leaving Iran. That resonated. Right. I always say, I left Iran and Iran never left me. And of course, correct. That's the trauma that I carry in me because I can get rid of it. It's still part of me. But that last sentence, that made me cry. So, and I really appreciate you. Thank you for doing this today. Thank you, Yasmine. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, for all your help to get this conversation with Isaac going. Cindy, you're next.
Thank you. Thank you, Isaac, for speaking today. That was really, really interesting. And, you know, I do have a question because I was kind of surprised to hear you reference earlier the protocols of the elders of Zion. You know, because it is, my understanding is that that was, you know, an anti-Semitic hoax that came out of imperialist Russia and that came to, you know, was brought after the Russian Revolution, was brought to the West by the anti-Bolsheviks, and I think was first translated into Arabic around 1920. But it's also referenced directly in the Hamas Charter or the original covenant in 1988, I think it was. So I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit to that. I mean, to me, that's just kind of a fascinating, you know, how that could have come to Iran, how that is the basis, it seems like, of a lot of the Islamist hate. And it's actually originating from imperialist Russia. So I don't know. I just, if you could just address that a little bit, I would appreciate it.
Yeah, this is the book that unfortunately has been translated to so many languages, including Farsi, including publication of the book during Islamic Republic far more than in the past, and has been distributed freely to so many people in Iran. And the real roots of anti-Semitism, that it became standard and it is copied over and over and over, is from that book, Elders of the Zion. And it has many different names now. And there are, I just don't want to advertise for it. But yes, in Iran it came. The issue besides the Islam was also the penetration of the British as well as Russians into Iran. As you probably know, during the First World War as well as the Second World War, especially Second World War, influence of British and Russians increased in Iran, such that they divided the country. The Russians took the north and the British the south. And as a result, there were a lot of cultural mix, and this hatred of Jews and anti-Semitism that Christians and Bolsheviks and others they had in Russia was imported into Iran. And that's how it spread. The concept of killing the children, and it started with the Christianity. It started with the elders of that book of Elders of Zion and so on. That concept didn't exist before in Iran, before Sephardi, 1500 years ago. It was brought to Iran. The concept of controlling the media, controlling the banking, the whole thing, it didn't exist in Iran prior to Sephardi and so on. It was brought to Iran, especially during Qajar period, which was a couple of 100 years ago. That dynasty, the king kept going to European countries, coming back, inviting European countries into Iran. And so these cultures, this concept was important. And unfortunately, it was translated into Farsi, and a lot of young people, especially during my period in university, that's it. It came, and it is far more hurtful that comes from well-educated, high academic people with all types of beliefs that doesn't have any truth in it, and it comes right into your face. That's far more hurtful than bunch of people that they have no education and so on, and they just repeat what they heard from their parents, and you can dismiss that. But this is it. And I'm glad that you noticed that. I'm glad that you talked about it, and thank you for it.
Right, well, thank you.
Yeah, I want to say though that even though it was imported into Iran, there was already fertile soil for it to flourish, and I think we saw that after October 7th too. Everybody was
yes.
really shocked at how quickly the anti-Semitism was so loud and blatant, and that's what made people realize, oh, we have had fertile soil here for a very long time. And so as soon as you throw the seeds, or as soon as you throw the match on this kindle that has been laid, it just erupts so quickly. And so even though these ideas were extra vicious and, so many more conspiracy theories and all of that stuff, if the people weren't already of that mindset, they wouldn't have accepted it so readily. They would have been like, what is this? This makes no sense. This is crazy. They would have been more critical when they read it.
If I could just say one more thing about that briefly, about the protocols, because I just find it fascinating. I don't know that much about it, but it's really my understanding that the protocols of the elders of Zion are also the basis of a lot of Christian hatred of Jews. It puts together like all the conspiracy theories, about all these horrible things the Jews are responsible for, trying to take over the world and trying to dominate, and how they've gotten into financial stuff and the political sphere and all that, specifically. And it's interesting, that they specifically use Zion. It's like this concept of Jews being connected, I guess, to Israel is considered that's a sign that the Jews want to take over, everything in the name of Zion or something like that. But what I find fascinating in the modern day is, if you look at, the imperialist Russians and, and even groups like Hamas, that are Islamist, or jihadist groups, they hate the communists. They are actually, if you read what they actually say, they blame. It's sort of like they blame the Jews for being the communists also, and they're also like against the communists. And so it's interesting to me now that even now, sort of the far left, that is sort of, the Marxists and communist leaning people that are sort of aligning themselves with the Islamist groups are now still almost like joining back to the people that were against them in this common goal of blaming the Jews for everything. I don't know. I don't know if that's making sense exactly, but it's just mind-boggling how it all comes back around to that.
Thank you,
I
Cindy.
hear you.
Yeah.
Leora, you're next.
Hello. First of all, thank you both so much for this. It's really very, very interesting, and I appreciate it a lot. I think it's very educational as well. My question has to do with, so you said that you think it's important to fight back, to really not just let what is happening happen, basically. And so one thing that I've been struggling with across this time is knowing where that limit is between trying to go against the lies and the just blatant anti-Semitism, trying to educate people to whatever extent is possible, to the ones who still have hope somehow. And but the limit between that and deciding, you know what, I can't do this. I need to protect myself. And so I'm wondering, what is your view on that?
Okay. Thank you for the question. The first thing that I believe is do not have fear. Fear is what they want to create. And if we get frightened and hide, they succeed. So the first thing is not to have a fear. The second thing is let's get them, not all of them, but some of them. It's like herd mentality. It's you have a bunch of goats that when the first goat jumps over the creek, all of the goats follow that head of the herd. So it's herd mentality. So we need to create a situation so for the herd stop and then think by themselves and say, okay, is that really true? Do the Jews have horns? Michelangelo, I repeat his sculptures. Do they really have horns? And let them think. What is the contribution of Jews? Let me think about it. Just Google Nobel Prize winners. The Jews of the Jews of universe. What percentage are they? 1.3%, 1.4%? What is it? And what's the percentage of Nobel Prize winners? 40%, 45%? What is it? Why? Why is it that in medicine, you just name it, all type of culture, the Jews contribute so much? And why should we hate them for their success? Why is it that they are so educated? Why they put so much priority on education? So fighting, I don't mean physical fight. I mean with bringing the truth. I was driving in Berkeley. My daughter, one of the other daughters, lives in Northern California. And it's frightening to drive to Berkeley. It's really frightening. And you cannot get off your car. If you have any sign of Zionism, oh my God, that's it. You are done. But the same people, the same group, I believe, are a bunch of herds, educated, university, and left as well as right. The left, as I said, they love environment, they love green, they love liberty, they love all type of mixing of the cultures and so on. All right, if you love that, realize what are you supporting? Supporting those that they don't care about environment? Are you kidding me? They don't support any mixing of the cultures and so on and so forth. What are you supporting? And at the same time, what is the Jew that you hate so much? What does he do for this country, for any culture? What have they done? Look at their history. So, yes, when the October 7th passed and so on, we had some guy in Pico and Robertson, in the neighborhood here in Los Angeles, that there are a lot of Orthodox Jews and synagogues. Some guy took a knife and went after people, and it was terrible fear. You know what I did? I put my yellow ribbon. I don't go with kippah. I'm not Orthodox. I put a kippah on, and I started walking in that street. And I went to the synagogue in that location, which I never go. But I did that to show that I have no fear. You want? Come talk to me. And let's be logical with regard to the satanic regime of Islamic Republic, who empowers you, finances you, and causes you to hate a group that contributes so much. So that's my basic philosophy. And I hope you will be also vigilant, learn it, and explain it yourself to others that they disagree with you.
And for example, if you go into that conversation with someone who is, I've had many people starting to kind of teach me on our people, you know, and what we do and who we are. And it's, you know, I would try to be like, well, I mean, you know, I am those people that you're talking about. Like, you could ask me and not tell me. And so that's kind of where I'm start thinking, yeah, there's no hope with this person.
Right.
You know,
I have to tell you a story. I was a district engineer in central Minnesota, and they were 180 or some farmers that I served them. The first thing that I did when I went to visit them, they invited me to help them in some problems that they had. So I said, my name is Isaac. My last name is Yomtovian. I'm Jewish. And they said, oh, okay. As a matter of fact, I have a friend that he happens to be Jew. Okay, we can accept you because you are exceptional. Okay. And during the same period I was helping them, there was a terrible, terrible economic and financial situation. And the farmers, they were losing their farms. And they were just hurting. So on the National Public Program, PBS, on TV, all of a sudden, one Sunday, I'm watching my own farmers saying this is all because of Jews. They control the bank. They control it, all about Jews. So the next time when I had the meeting with all of them, which they claim to love me, they tell me that how much I help them. They come and say, I said, were you really thinking that Jews control the bank and so on? Say, oh, no, that we didn't really mean that. This is what we were told. That's what's in the media. That's what. So I had to spend a lot of time, and I think I did some service to the same farmers, and they came to realize that the concepts that they have heard, they have told by their neighbors and so on, one hears from the other, and the other one doubles up, tells to the other one, and the other one, it just kind of like gets bigger and bigger issue. So it's very important that explaining to them, and don't be afraid. Fear is brother to death. Don't be afraid.
I commend you for your patience, because that's not easy to do.
Okay, sure.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
That's great advice, Isaac. Thank you. That's beautiful. I find it so ironic that whether it's Iran or Canada or America, that, this herd mentality that you're talking about, we see it in universities, which should be where the critical thinking should be happening. It should be the opposite of herd mentalities. But that's where a lot of these anti-Semitic tropes and conspiracy theories, that's where they take root.
I always use the example of the herd mentality. Jews exactly are opposite. You have two Jews, three opinions. You have in an island, there must be 2 or 3 synagogues, because they constantly argue with each other. And that tells you that you don't have herd mentality. Unfortunately, you are correct. Absolutely, you are right. In the universities, they teach them to be herds and goats rather than independent thinkers.
Yeah. That's why when I was a child, because I would always ask questions, my family would insult me by saying, "You're a Jew. You ask so many questions like a Jew." Like, that's the insult, that you ask too many questions like a Jew. So we have another question here from somebody asking if you have any thoughts on the upcoming US election.
Oh boy.
You don't have to get into it if you don't want to.
I can tell you that in my book, I talk about the period of Obama. And there is a section that I talk about the women of Iran, which is very interesting. And then I talk about nuclear technology and so on and so forth, that how it came to Iran and so on. So politics, I used to be very active, and it's a very slippery route, and you can try to be this way and they interpret you the other way. So in my opinion, it is a privilege that we have here in United States, that we can be involved in politics. Politics is not dirty. Politics is a necessity. We should always get involved, impact from inside rather than outside. So if there is any audience there that hears, get involved, contribute, do your service. You may be Republican, you may be Democrat, you may be independent. It's okay. It's okay to get involved. Now, if you go and check my background, you will see that I always say I vote for the individual. I don't vote for the party. And you will see that I may be kind of get close to one party, but criticizing them as well. So that is a privilege. That's what I call it, the ultimate land here in United States. And I call it ultimate land. That gives us such a privilege. Let's use our privilege.
Absolutely. Isaac, before we conclude the conversation, I just want to make sure I give you the last word. If there's any final words of advice, or if you want to tell people where they can get your book, or how they can follow you on Instagram, or any information you want to give us now as a conclusion to our talk.
Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of information, but I love to show you the cover of the book. This is the cover of the book.
Good.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Here it is. I think I'm sure. Do you see it?
It's kind of coming in and out because of the background.
Okay.
There it is. Perfect. Keep it like that. Oh,
okay.
Memories,
So
mysteries, and myths.
Yeah, this book, you see, I'm still using some Iranian Islamic concept of the decorations. This is from mosques. These are the mosaics all around. And then in the background, I have the Rumi's poetry that I have selected. And then I have my ID card. And this is a bicycle ID card, bicycle. And even on the bicycle, I am identified as a Jew.
Mm.
So it was a common thing. And then in the back, I have some reviews of the book. And I am so proud of the fact that reviews are done by Muslims.
Mm.
I wanted it to be that nobody will think that this is a Jewish book, or this is a hatred book, or this is a classic teaching book. It's not. And there is a lot of poetry in it, a lot of jokes I have from Mullah Nasruddin, awful lot of funny stuff, and I have awful lot of truth. Just one thing that it's maybe not polite to say, but I say it anyways. From one hand, these Muslims, they hated to touch a Jew because they would get contaminated. But there is a chapter, big chapter in the book, that the Muslim woman, they loved the concept of a Jewish man. And they had husbands that are mullahs or whatever, 20, 30 years older than they are. They smell, they look terrible and so on. And they would come to the Jewish place when they were clean and cut and clothes that was and smelled good, everything. Why is it from one hand, they were najas and they were impure and they were so dirty. From the other hand, you love them because they were educated, they were nice, and on and on. There's a chapter that tells you about this section that it's unbelievable, that how these two concepts cannot go together. And finally, I have to say that I pray for a day when Iran becomes secular, democratic country that will never ever empower and finance bunch of terrorists.
Mm.
And as you said, once this happens, the entire Middle East and probably the rest of the world will be in much better peace. Maybe not total, but much better peace. And I pray for a day that I'll take my children and my grandchildren to Iran that I love and show them the greatness of that country.
I hope that for you too, Isaac. That would be beautiful. I don't pray, but if I prayed, I would pray for you and for your children that that day would come. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time and for your honesty and for your open heart and for learning, for educating us so much. We've learned so much from you. So thank you so much, Isaac. Thank you all for joining us.
Yasmine,
we'll
sorry, I'm so
yeah.
sorry. Hi, I'm Isaac's daughter.
Oh, okay, yes. Then you're allowed to do this.
I'm sorry, and I do. Dad, Barry's on here, and he's having a hard time asking his question. That's Alan. Sorry, yes.
Okay.
He's just. I'm not sure he knows how to work the hands, but I do want. I'm the one doing the Instagram, and I just started it, and I'm doing my best. And
you're doing great.
There's a publication who's going to start. They just started. There's a Mizrahi journal who's going to start publishing Jewish Mizrahi stories. So they're going to do some of yours, Dad, and I'll post things when they have their date and their publication when it comes out. And if anyone wants a copy of the book, if they can email or message me through his Instagram, I can send a copy. And I know he's very responsive to his own emails. So maybe, Dad, you want to share with Sarah. I know she's good at doing that. So that's all I wanted to say.
I saw the picture of Barry. Barry,
He's there.
I saw it for a second.
He's on there.
Thank you. Barry, you can go ahead. You're unmuted.
I am. Oh, you want to talk to Barry?
I think he wants to talk to you.
Yeah, I saw him for a second.
I see you, Isaac. Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay, I hear everything you have to say. I'm not a person that is able to give speeches as you are. However, I'm wondering if you're a very positive person. You're optimistic about a change, but right now is the all-time low for hatred of Jews all over the world, not just in Iran. And when, if ever, do you anticipate this situation turning positive?
Thank you, Barry. As I said before, anti-Semitism existed always, and it probably will continue to exist, hopefully not to this level. And it is true that right now we are at the bottom of the barrel, and situation is terrible, especially in Los Angeles, UCLA, USC, Berkeley. I see it every day, and it's not good. It's really bad. But I'm very optimistic because just before 1967, Six-Day War, we had a similar situation, and it got resolved during my lifetime. And I'm hoping that this situation will also be resolved soon without a major, drastic impact, negative impact on Israel. I hope. And I'm very positive, you are right, that it will, and things will get better.
I lost the picture and I may have lost the sound, but...
No, I hear you, Barry. I hear you.
Okay, and I hope your positive approach to the future comes about. And we'll talk privately, Isaac.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation.
Sure. You're very welcome.
And we have one more question from Tochi. We're never going to let you finish.
Well, I tell you one thing about Barry. Yeah. Barry is a wonderful person and a good friend, but he's the one that would always tell me, "Why are you so positive?"
Yeah. You have to
love
be.
Him.
It's the only way to survive.
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think just last thing, perhaps we in the better of the communities in a sense, I think we should go on the offensive in terms of, instead of trying to get the world to love Jews, because ultimately the world is unfortunately anti-Semitic, and that's a very uphill battle. I think we should be trying to get the world to hate Islamists. And the truth of the matter is that many communities, my communities as a Nigerian Igbo, across Africa, hate Islamists. They may not know about it. They may not be familiar. But the moment you start to get them to think about what Islamists have done in their lives, they'll go, oh, yeah, actually. And sure, they may end up still not liking Jews, but at least they will stop supporting Islamists, right? And then, of course, we can then, start to get people to understand, of course, like, most Arab Muslim people are in fact good people. They do hold dangerous ideas, but that doesn't mean that they're violent. But Islamists take it to the next step. And then people can start to understand, oh, this is how Islamists operate, and isolate the Islamists. I think that's, in my opinion, the way to go. And that requires allyship of multiple communities,
Is Yasmine on still?
Yes, I'm here, but...
Okay.
Oh, do you want to respond to that?
Yeah. It's very interesting. In my growing up as a child and so on, even my parents said, if you don't love me, it's okay, as long as you respect me. Mm-hmm. I don't demand love, but respect I I expect, and as we were talking about Muhammad's quote that I used in my book, the important thing is to respect. So as long as the Islamists, the Muslims, Christians, Zoroastrians, everybody has respect for each other, I don't have a problem.
Mm-hmm.
I may not love, I don't this I act actually I don't expect love, but I demand respect. Demand it, and I also give the respect to others. And that's why you were talking about the book. I have to be angry and so on. The anger is there, but I control it and I give respect. I say, okay, let me hear you. And therefore, I hear it and I respond. You were talking about the book since Eddie came on the line. Yeah, my Iran book is on Amazon, and there are all types of Amazons. And I personally, I don't get a penny of it. I contribute all of the funds to the charitable organizations. And if anybody wants to send me email and so on, is Yomtovian, which is my last name, at yahoo.com. But the person that really handles everything is my daughter, Ezzy. She is the one that handles me and knows everything.
Wonderful. So we will make sure to include that email address. We'll make sure to include your Instagram. And if anybody wants to reach out to Ezzy for copies of your book, if they can't find it on Amazon or anything, then they'll have a place to go to reach you. So thank you again, Isaac. I actually love and appreciate that you are not angry. I don't think that that's a healthy place to be. I just think that it's so unfair how while people are bleeding, while people are in trauma, sometimes we berate them for having anger over the people that have caused them to bleed. That I feel is very unfair. And to be honest with you, something that I just shared with a friend yesterday, I've known her for years, but she didn't know this. I was telling her about all of the anger and resentment that I had because of all of the years that were wasted in Islam, where I was lied to and I believed those lies. And I had hate for Jewish people, and I had hate for gay people, and I had hate for non-Muslim people. I had all of this negativity in me against my will because I was indoctrinated with it. And when I reached the point of realizing I wanted nothing to do with this religion and I wanted to live my life very differently, I had so much resentment still for all of those wasted years. I had a lot of anger in me. And what broke me out of this, what made me finally stop seeing myself as a victim, was watching YouTube videos of Holocaust survivors. They made me feel ashamed, that they could have survived what they have survived, and they truly and honestly do not have hate in their hearts. They're just talking about rebirth, regrowth, new beginnings, looking forward, progress, the future, light. And it blew my mind. And I realized if they can overcome the darkest period in humanity, the worst thing that humans have ever done to each other, then who am I? Of course I can also do it too. So they gave me the example that it can be done. And so I don't want you to have anger. I love that you don't have anger, but I also don't want you to feel that you're not allowed to express with anger the things that happen to you, because you have every right to do that. And if, it's just, I feel like it's a very toxic place that we're in the world right now with this gaslighting that's going on, where if an Israeli person or if a Jewish person speaks up these days about how scared they are or how sad they are or how angry they are, they're immediately attacked and told, that they shouldn't be feeling that way, that they are the oppressors, that they are the this and that and whatever else, And so I just didn't want you to feel, especially when you're here, a guest on my platform, that I want you to know that this is a safe place, because you went through a lot of horrible things in Iran, and you have every right to feel sad about it and angry about it and upset about it. And you are an incredibly gracious man, that you do not let that anger rule you, but instead you let the light rule you and you let your positivity rule you. And that's an example for all of us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Isaac.
After hearing all that, you might be left wondering, what can I do? How can I help? Well, this is why I created a nonprofit called Free Hearts, Free Minds. We are the only organization dedicated exclusively to helping these free thinkers. We empower them with our programs and supportive community, lifting them up so they can heal, speak out, and begin to make positive changes, not just in their own lives, but within the broader community around them. If this is a cause that resonates with you and you want to make a difference, one way to do that is by donating to Free Hearts, Free Minds. Because not enough people care about this cause, we need people like you to help fuel this change. You can donate via our website, freeheartsfreeminds.com. Thank you. Every dollar you donate makes a difference.